So I don't remember exactly where I heard this, but I do have a pretty specific memory of Noam Pikelny, banjo player with the Punch Brothers, at a workshop at some bluegrass festival saying that he learned how to improvise by writing 5 solos for Whiskey Before Breakfast. And maybe I'm just making that up because I've looked online and I can't find any evidence of him saying that now. So if you know what I'm talking about, if you've heard Noam say that, drop a line in the comments below, because I just really love that sentiment of writing solos to learn how to improvise better. And it is something I have really benefited from, writing solos for standard tunes like this. And it can look a lot of different ways, right? It doesn't mean writing something out on paper. It can mean coming up with it by ear. But the idea is to memorize it, to organize your melodic thoughts in advance so that when the time comes to play the tune, you have a lot more material to draw from, right? And you could play through the solo note for note if you want to, or you could play bits and pieces of it and connect the dots in different ways off the cuff, or just throw it all out the window and try improvising something new, just trusting that you're going to be able to improvise something better after having done the deep dive of composing the solo in the first place. And to be honest, in the past, I'd never written quite as many solos for the same tune. 5 solos for a fiddle tune is quite a lot to manage, but I figured if a great musician like Noam Pikelny does this, then it was time for me to take the hashtag Noam Pikelny challenge and write 5 of my own solos for Whiskey Before Breakfast. And obviously that's what we're gonna be looking at here in this video today. What's up, folks? My name is David if you're new here to the channel, and I wanna show you how to play these 5 solos. And the huge caveat is that you don't have to learn all 5 of these solos, and you don't have to learn any of these solos if you don't want to, but the hope is that the more content you soak up for a tune like this, the deeper that you dive, the easier it's gonna be to play your own ideas on this tune and other tunes as you're trying to improvise down the line. And by the way, if you're still working on the basics for this tune, maybe check out this other video lesson in the cards above where I'll walk you through the chords, the melody, and even how to play that same melody in different places up and down the neck. And we're going to be referencing those different positions quite a lot, so be sure to study up there first before diving into these solos. And I will say that this is a pretty advanced lesson. All 5 of these solos have their own unique challenges, and because of the mega amount of content we're trying to tackle here in this video, we're going to have to hit things pretty fast. So we'll just go down the list one solo at a time. I'll start by playing the solo up to speed first, then I'll give you a couple talking points breaking down the tougher spots on each one, and then we'll play through that same solo from start to finish a bit slower with that transcription on screen. And if you want the 10 pages of tablature and notation that companion this video, as well as the MP3 backing tracks for Whiskey Before Breakfast, you can find it over on my Patreon page at the link in the cards above. But whenever you're ready, let's dive in and start with solo number 1. So this first solo here is centered around the melody that we learned in the open position, or what some people call the first position, which is just the territory between your open strings and the 7th fret here on the fretboard. And as I was writing this solo, I wanted to stick close to the melody, but I wanted to throw in some things here and there just to spice things up. And first up, there's a few extra embellishments here, right? Check out these faster pull-offs that we have in the first A section. We have another one at the end of the A section here too. We have this pretty intense set of pull-off triplets at the end of the solo. Just watch out for the pinky action here. I also wanted to mess around with some different rhythms, and the second time through the A section when we go up the octave, that's where we have this kind of fun open A string figure where you're playing a high note on the E string, followed by 2 open A strings. And that unit of 3 repeats with different notes on the high string, right? With a a little bit of a slide there at the end to watch out for. And lastly, we do get a little bit out of the first position here at the end of the solo, which is kind of a fun place to go up and register to stir up some excitement towards the end of your break. So watch out for the finger numbers above the standard notation, which will help you make those shifts a bit more seamlessly. Well, I know that's a brief introduction, but try this out on your own time, and whenever you're ready, let's come over to that backing track in the transcription and try this out a bit slower. 1, 2, 3, 4. On to solo number 2 now. For solo number 2, we're messing around with what I call the ring finger position for your D major scale. That's where you have your ring finger on the root here on the 7th fret of the G string. Like we talked about in the first video lesson on Whiskey Before Breakfast, you can play a really nice closed position scale shape out of this position. And one thing I didn't mention in that video is that this is very linked to your D major chop chord shape, right? And as I was writing this second solo, I wanted to kind of stick to this position to force myself to think of new ideas and distinguish it from the first solo a bit more. And since we're playing a bluegrass fiddle tune around a chop chord shape right here, it got me thinking about our good friend Bill Monroe, who did a lot of that himself. So you might have noticed a couple of Monroe isms in this solo here. I don't claim to be an authentic Monroe style player at all, so I apologize if I'm playing it wrong or if I've stepped on any toes out there. But kind of obviously so, there's a lot of double stops in this version, right? And there's a lot of really quick grace note slides, especially from the minor third to the major third, which is a really common bluegrass sound, right? Probably the hardest lick in this whole solo for me was at the end of the 3rd line, where we play this kind of classic Monroe style lick over the 5 chord, the A major chord, and you're dragging your pinky from the 9th to the 8th fret, walking down chromatically, and then you got the minor third to the major third of your 5, going back up to that A for the root of that chord. So watch out for that one. We also have a couple of really quick 16th note passages here, and for the right hand, I like to alternate for those faster 16th notes, followed by a down and then another down to set yourself back on track to make sure your pick strokes are landing on the beats in the measure. So at the beginning of this B section, we play down, up, down, down, up. Then at the end of that line, same idea. And lastly, at the end here, I thought it'd be fun to play some tremolo double stops, and I'm not really playing measured tremolo, not worried about how many notes I play on each set or how I get there with the slides on time, so feel free to get a little bit greasy there if you want to. But yeah, that's solo number 2. Whenever you're ready, let's try this one out as well. 1, 2, 3, 4. number 3, this is our hop solo, right? And for this one, we're checking out some different octave variations using some closed positions that we looked at previously. So you can play a higher octave of that D major scale starting with your index finger on the 5th fret of the A string. I'm sure that's a familiar shape. And then you can play the exact same notes starting with your ring finger on the D here on the 12th fret of your D string. And then you'll see that's the exact same fingerings as what we were playing down here for our lower octave version of the ring finger position for the previous solo. So we're already seeing how all these dots connect, but in these higher octaves, I thought it'd be fun just to stick to the higher positions and not really play too many open strings or too many things further down the neck. So this one might be the most challenging out of all the solos. And I got maybe a little bit carried away on this one because it strays a bit further from the melody than the previous solos that we've looked at. So it just takes a while to get familiar with these new melodic ideas and seeing how it intersects with the melody. But I know that's all really subjective, so take your time as you're working through this. Just a couple things I'd watch out for on the B section. One, there's a really big slide from your 7th fret on the D string all the way up to your 12th fret. And it's a grace note slide, so I do it probably pretty quick. Then once we slide up there, we slide even higher on that E string too, and then we camp out here for a little bit to play a version of the melody an octave higher for the B as well, which is pretty challenging. And then on the last B section, we get way up the neck again and mess around with some arpeggio ideas that I think sound pretty good over the chord changes, and they're not too hard to play, but check this out. But then that arpeggiation continues in maybe some uneven ways. This might be the hardest passage for this solo for me, so take your time here too. All right, but buckle up because now it's time to try solo number 3, our octave ideas. Whenever you're ready, let's dive in. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, solo number 4 is centered around our index scale position with our index on the root here on the 7th fret of our G string. Again, that nice closed scale position shape, but since we're up here and we also have our open D and A strings available here in the key of D, I thought it'd be fun to mess around with some cross-picking ideas for this solo. First up, watch out for the pickup measure for this solo, right? Because we're doing some notes up the neck, but we're also playing some open strings to get this harp effect. So that's what's going on for this whole A section melody, right? We're playing mostly melody notes on our G string, and then we're playing cross-picking patterns across those D and A strings to fill it out. And I say cross-picking, I'm not really doing any Jesse McReynolds style, multiple ups, multiple downs. They're all alternate strokes for all these eighth notes. And then for a change of pace at the beginning of the B section, we get back to playing some single string ideas, right? Back to the melody. But then we'll come full circle at the end of the B section and play some more cross-picking ideas. This might be the hardest chunk of the entire solo for me again. And check this out. On the third measure of the third line, there's this unusual spread between your ring finger on the 12th fret of the D string, and then you have your index on the 7th fret of the A string for this cross-picking pattern. Then we have another slide with your middle finger up to the 10th fret, but we're playing some open strings as we descend to get back to the melody. And you got this. Let's try solo number 4 together now. A 1, 2, 3, 4. Last solo here, right? Solo 5, I'm just calling mishmash because we're combining all these different positions together with some new ideas. Throughout this solo, we're kind of transitioning to new territories on the fretboard about every 4 measures, give or take. So we're going to be shifting quite a lot. It's a really good exercise for fretboard navigation. But if you tackled all 4 of the previous solos, I think this is all stuff that you can handle as well. Let me just show you a couple things to watch out for. First up, on the second A section here, we have a hammer-on triplet run, which is kind of fun. Hammer-on triplet run, fun. Just make sure you stick the landing for all those hammer-ons. Get a good sound out of all those. Next, headed to the B section, there's kind of a weird, tricky transition that I just schemed up and I thought it'd be fun to add in, so apologies for this, but check this out. Going from the 4th fret on your D string to the same note on your G string here on the 11th fret with your ring finger, and then you're staying in this new position for a while. Just for some variety, there's a quarter note triplet here on the second line of the B, watch out for that. Followed by kind of this weird double stop from the 11th fret on your D string to the 5th fret on your A string. And then for that last line, we're doing some more arpeggios, but it works out a bit more evenly this time. Sounds like this. And then for that last full measure of eighth notes, we're dealing with another harp arpeggio kind of thing where we're playing some open strings and some fretted notes up the neck to get this cool effect. All right, finish line is in sight. Let's see if we can play through solo number 5 together with the backing track and the transcription. A 1, 2, 3, 4. this might be like the most intense video I've done on the channel so far, but I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments below what you think, if this was helpful, if you learned something, if you'd like to see more videos like this on the channel. But the real challenge is ahead, because I wrote all these solos, right? But now it's your turn to go see if you can write your own solo for a tune like Whiskey Before Breakfast. You don't have to write 5, but see if you can write one and see if it makes you think of new ideas for a tune like this. And I've definitely felt kind of a bump up on this tune after going through this exercise. And I hope next time I go out to the jam, I'll be able to, mix and match different pieces of these solos together, or just be able to play up and down the neck a bit more freely, or just trust my improvisation a little bit more, since I have this deeper level of intimacy with Whiskey Before Breakfast now. So onwards and upwards. Again, check out Patreon if you want the PDF transcription and those backing tracks. Really appreciate all the likes and subscribes here. And if you're cruising for some more self-punishment here and you want to dig deeper into this solo composition idea, here's some similar videos on screen that you might enjoy. Check them out, and I'll look forward to seeing you soon.